Well, it's time now for the latest business news. The cryptocurrency Bitcoin has hit a record high price in trading of almost $20,000, surpassing its previous peak in 2017. The digital asset has seen wild swings in price over the years, but has been climbing steadily in recent months. Well, let's bring in now our business editor, Stephen Carroll. Stephen, what exactly is driving this price rise?
Haxie, first of all, I'd like to take you through what's been happening on the price of Bitcoin over the past year or so, because it has been an interesting ride. We had, before the pandemic struck, Bitcoin was trading around $9,000 a piece. It had this pretty dramatic fall, like most global assets. We'd seen similar moves on stock markets, for example, as the pandemic struck in mid-March, down to around $4,000 a piece, and we'd been gaining reasonably steadily since then. Back in September, it was around $10,000, and since September, we've seen this pretty major rise in prices up to the point where it hit yesterday around $19,500, surpassing that 2017 peak. Now, today in trading, things are a little bit weaker. We've seen Bitcoin down around 5%, down around $1,000 a piece, so just under $18,000 each in trading today. That's according to CoinDesk. Now, it is interesting to compare this to what happened in 2017, because market analysts say that it is a different sort of peak that we're seeing this time around. And that's, for one part, because there are more Bitcoins in existence. More Bitcoins have been mined using computer algorithms in the way that Bitcoins are created since 2017. But the other different factor involved here is that there are more professional investors, big investment houses involved in Bitcoin than there were back in 2017, when it was a lot more smaller investors, people deciding on their own to buy Bitcoin in the hope of reaping big profits. And that's partly being blamed for what the huge crash was that we'd seen in 2017, when prices rose above $19,000 and then fell by more than 50% in just a couple of days. So this time around, things looking a little bit different for Bitcoin, but it is a speculative asset. It doesn't have any intrinsic value. It's not like a stock that's linked to a company or a bond that's linked to government debt. It's something that is entirely driven by what investor perceptions of it are. And what market experts are reading into this recent rise is that these professional investors are viewing Bitcoin perhaps as a more long-term investment. That doesn't mean it's immune to another crash, though that could happen very easily. But certainly the expectation appears to be from investors who are putting their money into Bitcoin is they do expect it to last at a higher value for longer, perhaps not close to these same peaks we've seen in recent days.
Well, Stephen, turning next to a potentially massive deal in the tech industry involving the messaging service Slack. What more can you tell us?
Now, Slack's shares were up over 37% yesterday in trading, and this was after reports emerged that Salesforce, the cloud software giant, is interested in buying Slack. Now, these two companies might not be household names, but Salesforce is the world's biggest supplier of software to companies to manage their relationship with customers. It's an absolutely huge player in the scene. Slack, the workplace messaging tool, something that's seen an enormous increase in popularity this year because of the move to remote working. Installations of Slack are up about 50% on last year. Now, Salesforce is the titan here. It's got a market value of around $225 billion. And according to reports that initially emerged in the Wall Street Journal, they are in talks to buy Slack, a deal that potentially could be concluded in the next couple of days, according to these reports. It would be an interesting move by Salesforce. It's seen as perhaps upping their rivalry with Microsoft. They had in the past, those two tech giants, been looking to buy LinkedIn. Microsoft won out in the end in that battle, but acquiring Slack would put Salesforce more in competition with Microsoft Teams, another video conferencing and workplace communication tool that's seen huge increase in popularity during the pandemic. So this would fuel that rivalry between those two companies. It would see a huge change for Slack to be taken over by such a giant company. Slack worth around $23 billion at the end of trading yesterday after seeing that huge jump in its share price. Slack shares, though, had been down by 5%, so perhaps its investors not quite as keen on this one, but we're talking about a deal that would be worth billions and billions of dollars, potentially one of the biggest deals in the tech scene in recent years. So we'll have to stay tuned to see whether exactly that deal comes through.
And Stephen, what have we been seeing on the markets today?
So we've had this run in recent days of optimism on global stock markets, partly linked to hopes over a coronavirus vaccine and partly linked to the Biden administration putting its figures together in the United States as well. So we're seeing some gains on Asian markets today as well. The Nikkei in Tokyo up by 0.9% at the end of trading there. Investors didn't seem too worried by that increase in jobless figures in the United States yesterday, seen as a sign as perhaps as case numbers rise in the US that more people's jobs are being at risk there, but not playing out in trading on the Asian markets today as well. We've got gains on the Kospi in Seoul and in the Hang Seng in Hong Kong, just the Shanghai Composite dipping slightly into the red a short time ago.
Stephen Carroll with the day's business news. Thank you very much.